What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Ben Mathis Show. Today, we are talking about the power of moments. So this is a really interesting and exciting topic that I find to be fascinating. So when I first heard about this, The Power of Moments, it was a book by Chip and Dan Heath. And they talk about how we concentrate on the wrong things when it comes to memories. And that memories have always fascinated me. It's what I studied when I was in college. So it's a really interesting thing, and they really hone in on transition points. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, was transition points and how we actually remember things by transition points, right? So think about your life in general, right? When you're growing up, you probably remember key incidents in your life or key moments in your life based on the transition point. So we usually go back to first moments of something. So the first time you went to school, you can remember the year. The first time you went to middle school, high school, the first time you went to your favorite restaurant, the first time you met the love of your life. Everything is based on that particular moment, good or bad. It's typically based on a moment or a transition point when something is changing. And this is really, really interesting when you apply this inside of the business world. So when we look at real estate agents, that's the field that I'm in, and we look at how they interact with clients. It's fascinating that you can meet a new client, so that's the beginning of that relationship, and that's that first transition, right? So the first time someone meets you is their first impression of you, and we typically make a decent enough impression. Our National Association of Realtors statistics say that like 76% of the time when you meet a new client or a prospect or a new lead, they will typically end up working with you, and they don't meet with any other agents after that. So typically the first impression is pretty good, and then we have our whole transaction, and then we have closing. So that's the lifespan, typically anywhere from 105 to 150 days, can be longer, can be shorter. Just typical lifespan of what a client is when they look for 8 weeks and then it takes 45 days to close, around that time period, around 100 days. The interesting part is we usually get so caught up in making sure that we're helping them inside of the transaction and doing a good job that we don't recognize that really what impacts their memory of us down the road is when they first met us and the last thing we leave them with. So that last impression you leave them with, that last transition point, is what they will remember. So this is a fascinating thing when you think about it. When you look at your client life cycle or your database and you're focusing on the middle part of it when you're under contract with them or you're helping them find a house or sell a home, and you're not really looking at the transition pieces on either end. And here's the other thing. Are you participating in the other transitions in their life? So outside of this very narrow window of time, when they're working with you on either buying or selling a home, are you working with them in their life? Are you involved in those other transition moments? So think about other transition moments that you could be involved in, or just let them know that you're thinking about them. It could be a death in the family. It could be someone getting married. It could be a new grandbaby. It could be a new job promotion. Whatever it is, there's always a transition point outside of your life. And that's where we miss a lot, is because we get so caught up in just this narrow window of time that we don't look outside of that box. Now, this is also a really cool thing if you run a team, if you run a business, or if you're in charge of anybody in any capacity, thinking about transition points. So think about your last job, right? What do you remember about it? Typically, people are going to remember a couple of things. They're going to remember the first day they were there, and they remember why they left. So the Chip and Dan Heath talk about this, right? The transition point being so important on the first day when somebody comes into your world. What are you doing to mark that special occasion? What are you doing to make them feel like they're buying into something that is bigger than themselves, that they're contributing to something, that what makes their job fulfilling? And I think a lot of times we get so caught up in the wrong metrics that we just concentrate on getting someone in, get the job done, go home. Get someone in, get the job done, go home. We don't really consider the human cost of it, right? So we don't really consider that first transition point, taking the time to introduce them to our core values, to the company, to the leaders, tell them our story, tell them where we came from, why we're here, why do we do things a certain way, what sets us apart from the rest of the industry, the rest of our competitors, what makes us want to work with our clients, who is our ideal clients. We don't take the time up front to set that up, and then eventually they're just going to leave it because it's just another job. So we're missing the key transition points in people's lives. So I challenge you, when you're looking at either inside of your own business, if you're a real estate agent, so you're looking at your clients, or if you run a team, if you run a business, looking at your employees and say, what are the key transition points that I'm either missing or I'm not paying attention to, or maybe you're doing it haphazardly, you're not really consistent about it. What are the key transition points that you can start paying attention to, hone in on, to build that deep relationship with your